Phoebe is one of the more confusing characters coming within Wuthering Waves, due to her relying on new mechanics, and also featuring mechanics within her kit that usually aren't seen within the base kit of a character. So a lot of people have been wondering, should they be pulling for Phoebe, or is it better for them to skip her? Well, I have a couple of reasons on why you should pull for her, and then a couple of reasons on why you shouldn't, and you can decide for yourself whether you're going to pull for her or not. So these are Phoebe's biggest pros and cons. First of all, her pros. One of Phoebe's biggest advantages is that she has an insane selection of teammates. And when I say an insane selection, I do mean it. It's not like Carlotta where the best in slot is by far Zhezhe, and then you could run Changli, or you could run Yang Yang, or you could run Sanhua. No, she has an incredible selection of characters that are all very viable, and are all on a very similar level within the hyper carry playstyle. And then she's also an excellent user of the dual carry playstyle. So first of all, for hyper carry supports, Mortefi, Sanhua, Yang Yang, and Rochia are all strong options to use with your Phoebe. Obviously, there's some stronger than others, but what's important is that they're all relatively close to each other. You can also run the classic Shorekeeper team, but I'll get more into that later on in the video. All of these characters have some way to buff Phoebe in a way that is meaningful for her. And what I mean with meaningful for her is that it's not just, oh, I exist here to have a short field time. No, because most of these characters do have something important. For example, Yang Yang. Yang Yang has strong personal damage with, of course, a quick rotation time, but she also has strong grouping and is capable of giving Phoebe more energy, which is nice because Phoebe does actually have an energy requirement. Then there's Mortefi. Mortefi is a strong character with Phoebe because he's able to buff heavy attacks, which is most of Phoebe's damage share. And even though she gives herself damage amplification, Mortefi's buff is still useful. He's also capable of buffing attack with his S6 and Moonlit Clouds, and unlike other characters, he is also able to run the Static Mist, giving even more attack buffing compared to what he already had. Additionally, his personal damage is mainly abused if you use heavy attacks, and most characters don't actually use them that much, other than Jian and Jianxin. Well, considering the fact that Phoebe is using heavy attacks plenty of times, she is also able to bolster up Mortefi's damage quite a bit due to her just being a better Mortefi driver. There's also Sanhua, who is there for the classic reasons of short field time and then also her attack buffing, but even further, there's also the fact that the second biggest damage share that Phoebe has is her basic attacks, which Sanhua is able to buff excellently, so Sanhua is another strong buffer. And because Phoebe gives herself so many buffs, it means she's able to exploit dual carry to an excellent extent, because she doesn't need someone like Mortefi like Jian does. Instead, she gets the buffs from herself, and can excellently utilize a second DPS like Sheng Liao or Brant within her teams. And now to talk about Shorekeeper and Verena, which is the next point. The next positive is the fact that Phoebe doesn't actually use them, which is a pretty big deal considering that they are very contested characters. Shorekeeper and Verena are some of the best characters in the game, and it's because they are simply super universal, but Phoebe doesn't really care about having them, because the damage amplification that they provide is something that Phoebe really doesn't need, so you end up not needing to use Shorekeeper or Verena. You can also use Rejuvenating Glow on Rover, who can apply Spectrofrazzle, so that's even more utility that they provide that Shorekeeper and Verena won't be that useful for. So Phoebe not using these two characters is an excellent buff for your account, as it means that you're just able to make more cohesive teams. Another big plus for Phoebe is that her playstyle is incredibly simple. Now, while you are reading her kit, you are going to be asking yourself, what does any of this mean? Well, it ultimately narrows down to this: use her intro skill, use her heavy attack, use her skill, use her ultimate, and then do 3 basics and a heavy attack 4 times. That's it. That's all you really need to do. And it's not like you have to finish your 3rd basic attack either, because a dodge counter will also allow Phoebe to use her heavy attack. So ultimately, she is an incredibly easy character to pick up. So if you want to just play her in a hyper carry team and you're not that good at the game, don't worry, Phoebe's got your back. This is also helped by the fact that Phoebe is an incredible character from a range. But why does this matter? Well, there is a pretty simple reason for this. The fact that Phoebe is a ranged character means that she has the option to just completely avoid danger altogether. Now, why would you want to do this? Isn't Wuthering Waves a game all about dodging? Well, yes, but people who simply haven't really had the chance to learn how to dodge probably don't want to bother being forced to dodge in order to play their character. And Phoebe being able to just stay away from the danger is a big plus for a lot of people. And then finally, Phoebe has an incredible AoE, to the likes of even Camellia, who is currently considered to be the best AoE DPS in the game. Phoebe takes that AoE, takes the damage, and then says, what if I didn't have any of the inconveniences? If you are fighting multiple targets, Phoebe might be one of the best choices for you next to Camellia and GN. And Camellia and GN have their own fair share of problems. For example, for GN, he has a lower damage output, and for Camellia, her inability to move makes her inconvenient to play for a lot of people. And while Phoebe on her own also has a negative, which is the fact that she needs Spectrofrazzle to be applied to enemies, this is not really a big deal, considering the fact that Rover is able to apply it incredibly easily. You literally just do a heavy attack, and then a skill, and bam, there's your Spectrofrazzle. And it's not like Phoebe cares much about the Ultra skills that she was given anyway, so swapping out is not a big deal for her. So while it's not perfect, she definitely doesn't have as big of a disadvantage as the other AoE DPSs. But obviously it's not all sunshine and rainbows. Phoebe is not a perfect character or anything. So let's discuss Phoebe's cons. The first one that I have to mention is the fact that she really needs to use Rover. It's not a situation where it's like, ooh, if you don't use Rover, you lose damage. No, I mean, technically yes, but the amount of damage you lose is honestly just absurd. Because almost Phoebe's entire kit relies on the fact that Spectrofrazzle is applied to the enemy. And oh boy, in her DPS mode, she's only able to apply one stack. And if you're playing her as a sub DPS, there's no one she can currently support. So you kinda have to run her as a DPS currently. And like I said, she's not able to apply that many stacks, and since you want essentially 100% uptime on Spectrofrazzle, you need someone to help her. And the only character that can do that at this current moment is the Rover. So good luck, I guess. Then now we have to look at one of the pros and we have to put a spin on it, because most pros are a double-edged sword. And for Phoebe, it's the fact that she's not able to take that great advantage of most Ultra skills. Now obviously, her heavy attack is most of her damage and already has a lot of damage amplification. I've discussed this in plenty of videos, so heavy attack damage amplification is not going to affect her that much. But I think the real issue here comes with the fact that Phoebe's damage is very divided into multiple different things. Basic damage, heavy damage, and Ultra skill damage are all very important for Phoebe, and that's not even considering her liberation, which is also a good chunk of damage. So it's really hard to efficiently buff Phoebe unless you get an Ultra skill that's able to buff Spectro damage, which currently does not exist. I kind of wish this got added to Rover, but what can we do? And then the final negative that I have to talk about is the fact that she is the same element as Jinhsi, who is very popular. Now, why does it matter that she's the same element? It's not like this is Genshin where we have reactions. Well, it is actually fairly important because of the recent changes to the Tower of Adversity. Tower of Adversity now features resistance down or resistance up on enemies for specific elements, which means that if you have both Jinhsi and Phoebe, and the tower is currently anti-Spectro, you're kind of hurt, because in the best case scenario, you do have a couple of teams that can handle it. But in the worst case scenario, Phoebe and Jinhsi are your hard hitters, and then you just kind of have an okay team to deal with the lower floors. And if you're in that scenario, having two Spectro DPSs can hurt. Now I will say this is not the end of the world. At the end of the day, Jinhsi can still clear the fallacy of no return within time at level 80. I would know, I've done it literally this week. But it can still lead to inefficiency for your account. So, are you pulling for Phoebe? Let me know in the comments below. And while you're down there, might as well like and subscribe to the channel. If you have any questions to ask me, be sure to join my Discord. I'm very active in there. And if you just want to hear my random ramblings, be sure to follow me on Twitter or X. Both of these are linked in the description. Additionally, I'm going to be live streaming on the 13th of February for the 2.1 release of Wuthering Waves, so I hope you guys join me there. But that'll be it from me. Peace.